The introduction of Thragg in the Invincible universe did a lot of things. Number one, it solidified the big bad threat of the series. It also showed us just how outmatched our heroes are. However, another thing that this did was create so many fictional matchups that so many fans decided to do based on how powerful the character of Thragg is. I have seen so many different hypothetical battles with Thragg, and some of them are absolutely preposterous in my opinion. And that's why today we're talking Naruto versus Thragg. But before we get into anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Alright, Naruto versus Thragg. Now, on this channel, I mainly cover superheroes. However, Naruto is by far and away my absolute favorite anime character. So when I saw him being matched up against Thragg, and also a lot of people saying that Thragg would win this fight no difficulty, I knew that I absolutely wanted to talk about this. So first and foremost, let's talk about the parameters for this battle. We're going to talk about different feats that each character has pulled off so we can determine how they would fare against one another in a battle. So first, I'll start with Thragg. We only get to see him in this most recent season. However, we can still quantify just how powerful he is because he goes up against multiple characters that we've seen throughout the entire series. He goes up against Omni-Man. He goes up against Mark. And in both of these fights, going up against both of these characters, he does it with relative ease. He's able to dodge and evade Nolan with relative ease. He's able to strike Nolan with a punch that generates so much power and wind that we actually see the vortex being created. And he's able to punch Nolan up into the upper atmosphere. This is an insane feat of strength. Not only that, we see that he's also faster than Mark. And because of all the training that Mark's done, we know that Mark is insanely fast. So this puts Thragg on a whole nother level when we're talking about the Invincible universe. And we also see him decapitate Thetis with relative ease. And we've seen Thetis go toe-to-toe with some of the top Viltrumites in the Viltrum Empire. So all of these feats combined definitely go to show you just how much of a menace Thragg truly is, and just how powerful he truly is. Now, that being said, does that mean that he can stomp Naruto no difficulty? No, absolutely not. And I'm going to get into just why. So first and foremost, the thing you have to understand about Naruto is throughout his series, he gains so much power, it is absurd. So what I'm going to do is talk about how I believe Naruto would defeat Thragg, and also at what point in Naruto's life he wouldn't have been able to beat Thragg. Like, for example, adult Naruto would absolutely stomp Thragg. But with all that being said, some of the things that I have seen being talked about is Naruto's shadow clones, and a lot of people are saying he can only make so many shadow clones, it is stated. So in the first episode, he does make about 1,000 clones. Now, no, this is not ever stated. However, it was clearly shown to be over 100, over 500. You can't actually calculate it, but it does stand to reason that it was about 1,000 clones. However, a little bit later on, we do get definitive information about how many shadow clones he can make. When he is talking to Itachi when they are going to retrieve Sasuke, Naruto states that he can be any number from 1 to 1,000. So this gives us a quantifiable number of how many shadow clones he can turn into. However, this is also just an estimation, and we also have facts to prove and show that he can turn into even more than this. So the first example I'll bring up is when he is training for the Rasen Shuriken. He needs to use shadow clones in order to split leaves to master wind release. And now I'm not going to go into how many leaves exactly were on that tree. I'm not going to Google it and go through all of that. There are actually a lot of people who did that, and the numbers they came back with were absolutely absurd, showing that these leaves would have been at minimum 10,000 all the way up to 100,000. And I'm not saying that Naruto can make 100,000 clones. However, it would stand to reason that he can make well over 1,000 clones. In addition to that, we have to acknowledge something Kakashi said. Kakashi can make a decent amount of shadow clones. However, those are shadow clones for battle. Kakashi states that he doesn't have the chakra level to put all of those shadow clones through a training regimen. So this tells us that in a battle scenario, the amount of shadow clones that Naruto could make is actually greater than how many he makes for training, because Kakashi quite literally stated that it is much more strenuous to put all of those shadow clones through a training regimen than just have them for battle. And that does make sense, as a lot of the shadow clones would theoretically get taken out relatively quickly in an actual battle, versus during training, they are all right there focusing chakra the entire time. So it would stand to reason, if Naruto hypothetically could only make 1,000 shadow clones during training, then he should theoretically be able to make at least double that, up to 2,000, if he is going into battle. However, another thing we need to note, this is also before he has access to Kurama Chakra Mode, KCM1, KCM2, Sage of Six Paths Chakra. All of these things that he gets, all of these upgrades that he gets in Shippuden that allow him to have, number one, way more chakra, and number two, increases his ability to control chakra. And in addition to this, in the arc where they are trying to capture the Three Tails, Naruto and Gurren do get swallowed up by the Three Tails, and in this, he quite literally states that he can make thousands of shadow clones, and this is how they're able to get out of the Three Tails. They're literally thrown up by the Three Tails because Naruto creates so many shadow clones. It's either the Three Tails or later on in the War arc, he does this to the Four Tails. However, I do remember when he is in the Three Tails, he makes a shit ton of shadow clones and even states that it is thousands, meaning not just 1,000. However, even all this being said, I'm not saying that the ability to simply make shadow clones will put Naruto above Thragg. No, what's going to put Naruto above Thragg is Naruto has faced so many incredible enemies that Thragg is going to seem like next to nothing compared to them. And that's not to downplay Thragg. He is incredibly powerful. However, the Naruto universe is just insanely broken. When Naruto has access to Sage Mode, he is able to dodge a fully lightning cloaked third Raikage who is moving at the speed of light. The lightning cloak is something that is compared to as being almost as fast as the flying Raijin, and that is something that is instantaneous teleportation. So if you're able to theoretically dodge who is covered in a chakra cloak, which would mean they are moving at relative to the speed of light, dodging that would mean that you have a reaction time and a reaction speed that is above light speed. And considering Thragg hasn't shown anything up to this point to show that he has the capacity to be faster than light, it would stand to reason that Naruto, even in just Sage Mode, would be able to dodge all of Thragg's attacks. Now, the only downside to this is that depending on which form of Naruto we are using, he can only use Sage Mode for about 5 minutes. However, since we are just talking about Naruto in general, I'm going to talk about Naruto at his strongest form, before Baryon Mode, because when he gets that, he is so absolutely broken, this wouldn't even be a fight. He would kill Thragg instantly. However, even without Baryon Mode, I do believe that Naruto wins this fight relatively easily. His attack power is so absolutely absurd. Even with just a Rasengan or a Wind-style Rasen Shuriken, he would be able to do some serious damage to Thragg. The Rasen Shuriken literally does damage on a cellular level. This means it would attack Thragg on a cellular level, and I know he doesn't have access to actual chakra. However, if he gets millions of microscopic attacks that shoot into him, which is literally what we are shown the Wind-style Rasen Shuriken does, he would be pretty incapacitated by that. And considering Naruto can fire off multiple Wind-style Rasen Shurikens with relative ease and with pinpoint accuracy, it would stand to reason that he could probably hit Thragg relatively easily. And in the Fourth Great Shinobi World War, he was quite literally blowing up multiple meteors with his Rasen Shurikens. Now, yes, a lot of these actually were tailed Beast Bomb Rasen Shurikens. However, if Naruto used those, he would probably kill Thragg in one shot. And let's say, for instance, that Thragg was able to land an attack on Naruto and launch him into the upper atmosphere. Okay, great. Naruto's literally fought on the moon before. And even if you want to argue that Naruto no longer has Sage of Six Paths chakra, which he quite literally does, and you don't want to give him the ability to levitate, so you could argue that he is stuck in space then, and he would be at the mercy of Thragg, you are forgetting Naruto's literal first ability, creating shadow clones. If he creates a shadow clone, he can quite literally push off of that shadow clone and launch himself back down to Earth. And even if he starts to burn up in re-entry, that wouldn't matter, because Naruto has taken attacks that were able to split the moon in half. And after this happened, Naruto had no damage on him. He continued the fight without any hesitation. He didn't struggle at all. So that actually brings me to another point. Thragg probably wouldn't be able to damage Naruto. Naruto has the most insane healing factor of anyone in the Naruto universe, aside from maybe Sakura and Tsunade. However, you could even argue that his healing factor even surpasses them once he unlocks KCM2 and Sage of Six Paths chakra, because we've seen that he has some insane feats from a healing perspective. He's able to go one-on-one with Kaguya, a literal god. He's able to go up against Momoshiki, and yes, I know he had Sasuke there. However, if you watched that fight and thought that Naruto wasn't more important to that fight than Sasuke, then I don't know what you were watching, because Sasuke literally has to get saved by Naruto. And keep in mind, this is a Naruto that is stated to be less than 50%. Momoshiki quite literally states that he has taken more than half of Naruto and Kurama's chakra. So by this point, Naruto is going hand to hand with with a fused Momoshiki, who is the strongest character in the verse at that point, and he is doing it with only half of his power. And by the end of the fight, even though Naruto has chakra rods stuck throughout him and can't actually focus a lot of his chakra, because that is what chakra rods literally do, they make it so your chakra is so irritated that it makes it hard to actually shape and form chakra, and probably more importantly, makes it even harder to release any jutsu. However, even despite this, Naruto is able to transfer his power and give Boruto a Rasengan that quite literally launches Momoshiki through a giant tree, across the world, and up into the atmosphere, giving him a strength and power feat that far surpasses anything that Thragg has ever been able to do. So although this fight would be pretty interesting, I don't think it would be close at all. Realistically, I think Naruto wins this battle 10 times out of 10, just because he has way too much power, his fighting ability is way too good, his speed far surpasses anything Thragg can do, and Thragg has no answer for Naruto's crazy healing factor, whereas Thragg doesn't have a healing factor. So if these two do continue to land blows on one another, Naruto is going to continue to heal throughout this process, whereas Thragg isn't. Thragg is just going to be eating all this damage over and over again until he is inevitably killed. So, in my opinion, Naruto as an adult absolutely slams Thragg 10 out of 10 times. Naruto with Sage of Six Path Chakra slams Thragg 10 out of 10 times. Naruto with KCM2 and Sage Mode stacked on top slams Thragg. Even just simple KCM1 or KCM2 Naruto, in my opinion, is able to defeat Thragg because he shows the ability to move faster than the speed of light. He shows the ability to take tremendous damage even in both of these forms. And not only that, his destructive output in both of these forms is absolutely absurd. In my opinion, the only time that this becomes an actual fight is if you go all the way back to when Naruto could only use Sage Mode. And even in this instance, I don't think it results in Thragg winning 10 times out of 10. In fact, I think Naruto might still get the edge in this situation because, as I mentioned before, Thragg is probably not as fast as Light. And considering the fact that Naruto in just Sage Mode was able to dodge an attack by the third Raikage when he had a chakra cloak over him, it would stand to reason that Naruto could probably dodge anything that Thragg threw at him. So the only way that Thragg would be able to beat Naruto in this case scenario is if he could determine that Sage Mode didn't last forever and he could run out the clock on Naruto. However, even this would be pretty difficult to do because if Thragg gets hit by a wind style Rasen Shuriken, and yes, I know at this point, if we were talking about during the Pain arc, Naruto can only use 2 wind style Rasen Shuriken, that could still do a tremendous amount of damage to the point where Thragg probably wouldn't be able to fly anymore after that. Could he continue to fight? Probably. However, if he can't fly anymore, that limits his speed tremendously. That limits his attack power, and that limits a lot of his fighting ability. And if it is just on the ground, hand-to-hand combat, Naruto probably has the edge there as well, even in just Sage Mode. So in my opinion, Naruto in just Sage Mode still takes this battle 7 out of 10 times. Now, unfortunately, if we do take away Sage Mode, I do believe Thragg probably wins 5 out of 10 times, so this would be a more even 50-50 battle. However, considering the fact that we would have to go to the very beginning of Shippuden to even get to that point, I feel like it stands to reason that Naruto pretty much always will clear this battle against Thragg with relative ease. And additionally, there is still an argument to be made that Naruto in the beginning of Shippuden, once he does learn the wind style Rasen Shuriken, which is around episode 78, he could still take out Thragg, especially because by that point, the wind style Rasen Shuriken isn't a throwable jutsu. It's something that he uses like the Rasengan. So if Thragg is that close and Naruto utilizes this jutsu, it would tear him up so insanely. However, it would still do damage to Naruto, so he would be pretty worse for wear after landing this attack. So that's why I say this one would be more up in the air, and I could see a scenario in which Thragg is able to win 5 out of 10 times. And before Shippuden, when Naruto is just a kid, yes, Thragg wins, so he could successfully defeat Naruto when he is a child. However, aside from that, the best case scenario for Thragg is that he gets a 50-50 win state, but again, that is at the very beginning of Naruto's sequel story, so considering the fact that Naruto just continues to get more and more powerful, Thragg becomes so inconsequential that he wouldn't even be top 20 in the Naruto universe. I could probably list 5 to 10 characters in the Naruto verse that could defeat Thragg on their own. And I feel like one of the biggest reasons I made this video, aside from the fact that I absolutely love Naruto, is when when I saw an image for this battle, it wasn't initially Naruto versus Thragg. It was adult Naruto and adult Sasuke going against Thragg. And that is probably the most absurd image I've ever seen, because the two of them together going up against Thragg, I truly believe at almost any point in the series, even when they are kids, at the very end, at the final valley, they would be able to defeat Thragg. But that just goes to show you how absolutely insanely broken the Naruto universe is, and I truly believe that there are probably 5 to 10 characters in the Naruto verse that could solo the entire Invincible universe. But I'm interested to hear from all of you guys. How do you think this fight would shape out? Do you think Thragg would be able to defeat Naruto more times than Naruto could defeat him? And what version of Naruto do you think Thragg would be able to defeat? Let me know in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And I'll see all of you in the next video. Goodbye.